I've always, I guess, whatever, profound introversion has always made me wish that there was a card that I could wear that people could lean in, look at the card, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're a person of substance," and I wouldn't have to navigate just the mountain moving of trying to express who I really am when I'm afraid. I feel like childhood never really ends, and so we're still struggling with childhood issues all the way to the end of life, I think. You've got one way of remembering it, and that's just through thinking. But when you apply writing to the memory, you can dig deeper and deeper, and things will rise up, things you didn't remember that you remembered. And so I think there's the initial thought about the thing that happened, and then once you start digging into it with writing, more and more emerges.
Hmm.
Um, you can find you can find the funny in just about anything, that it's there waiting. I want people to want to tell stories.
For Love of Memoir is a place for people who have a passion for human stories. The ones we tell, the ones we carry, and the ones we're still trying to understand. Here, we talk with writers about their life changing experiences and what it takes to bring those stories onto the page and into the world. Whether you simply love a good story or aspire to write your own, you're in the right place. Hi, Dan.
Hey, hey, Aaron, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Welcome,
Thank you so much.
and thank you for joining me. We are here today to talk about your memoir, Misbehaving in Maine 30 Half Learned Lessons. I love the title, and we'll get into that. But usually, just to kick it off for anybody who maybe is not familiar with your work, although you have a pretty big online following, but for any of my listeners who are maybe not familiar with your work, why don't you just go ahead and give us a summary of what this book is about?
This book is about my childhood in Maine and trying to figure out how to be a brother, a friend to my older brother Joe, who was at times my very best friend and at times my worst enemy. And we're close enough in age that it's instead of sort of a mentor-mentee relationship, it's kind of like competitors. And so the book follows us from early memories, some of my first memories, all the way, and kind of a war between brothers, working its way from a hot war into a cold war, and eventually sort of a friendship, a peace at the end of the book.
Oh, I love it. I'm sure that there are a lot of siblings. I am not a sibling, I'm an only child, but I've known a lot of siblings, and I'd be willing to bet everybody can relate to that, especially a sibling that's close in age, right?
Oh yes, yes.
What made you decide to turn it into memoir? Why did you decide to release it this way?
I I bumped into memoir accidentally. I work at Geneva College in Western Pennsylvania, and I started a storytelling event. And to open it up, I told a story about myself and didn't realize that I really like writing this way and that it was also funny. And it just was a massive discovery. And since then, I've been doing it ever since. It started in about 2013, and I've been reading for school events since then, started blogging, and then it just built its way toward a book. When I realized from the blog, I'm like, I talk about childhood all the time, and I talk about my brother all the time. And so I saw this thread moving through the blog through the blogs, and I thought, this is the one. I just kind of pulled the thread, and then up rose a book out of it.
Wow, so you cracked open a whole new vein of creativity in yourself. Because you're an
Yes.
English teacher also, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with writing, the dream was always fiction. And that dream is still very strong, but I had no idea that creative nonfiction would be there too. And so that was
Mm.
just an accident, a very happy accident.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. Your book really is divided into mini lessons, if you will. Like, what can I, let's stop there for a second. I want to ask you 30 half learned lessons. What does that mean? Can you give us a little bit of background on the half learned lessons?
Sure. I feel like childhood never really ends. And so we're still struggling with childhood issues all the way to the end of life, I think.
Hmm.
Playground confusions and things like that. And so the lessons in the book, I mean, lessons about cruelty, lessons about having your dreams shattered, your hopes way too high. I feel like I'm still learning those lessons all the time. And so they're half learned in that I got burned as a boy and I'm still getting burned in the same ways. Hopefully they're more sophisticated burns by now, but a lot of the childhood struggle, it's still there. And so they it feels like they can only ever be half learned. Like we're never quite done with that process.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, that's a good point. It just evolves. Interesting. So your book is broken down into a series of these lessons. You kind of touched on it a minute ago, but kind of give us an idea of why you decided to write it that way. Why in these shorter format essays, if you will.
I think that a lot of that comes from the blog in that it just seemed to be natural to have these little
Mm.
punches of history and truths as I learned them growing up. And so I really enjoyed sharing them in that way. And then I think some of them, when I put them into book form, they grew a little bit longer here and there. But for the most part, they just kept that beat of about 2,000 words around there or less. And that just felt very natural for some of these
Mm.
stories. In that, I think the old memories, they sit out in the past, almost like people sitting around a campfire. And that campfire is about 2,000 words wide.
Yeah.
And for a lot of them, and so I know one of my favorite writers, David Sedaris, he talks about how he'll write a story and then he'll come back to it and write it again and find more and write it again and
Hmm.
find more. And so I think that a lot of these little campfires will expand in time.
Yeah.
But for now, that was the length that the storytelling impulse was asking for.
This is what feels natural to you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, central to your stories, most of your stories, is your relationship with your brother, sort of
Mhm.
this like sibling rivalry, love-hate relationship. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Sure. I was asking my mother about this, and she said that Joe, my older brother, he was kind of okay with my arrival until I developed enough to be interested in his toys and his adventures. And then he's like, wait a second, this is a hugely problematic. And then that's when he started trying to sort of control, I think, and he maybe just get me back to being a baby. And so babies don't speak, babies don't attempt to draw while you're drawing or play with Legos or interfere
Yeah.
with what you're building. And so with us, it was never physical violence. It was always sort of a psychological
Hmm.
torture, I guess. And so it was that since early childhood until we got older and older, there was just kind of always that voice of critique. Like, you don't have it quite right. You shouldn't do this. Um, I would draw a picture and I would show him and I'd be like, this isn't good, is it? And he said, no, it's not good. You shouldn't draw. And I'm like, ah. And so it'd be back to the drawing board and just trying, I guess a part of it is just trying to impress him
Yeah.
with something. And so, and that relationship has developed into friendship now, where still I I want my brother to love what I do. And I think drawing, for example, we'll go to visit them and the drawing papers very quickly cover the table and I'm drawing with his kids and showing him something and to make my brother laugh with a drawing is still that's good living right there. It's very exciting for me.
You strive for that still, huh? So
Still.
has his criticism or critique, if you will, sort of morphed into maybe more like advice over time? Or how does that, yeah, how is that dynamic today?
It feels the form it's taken is just sort of he an appreciation. And so I like to make little coloring books for Christmas. And so
Mm.
I'll have coloring books and I'll send them to everybody in the family. And if I'm there, in Maine around Christmas time and I get to watch Joe look at the coloring book, I'm just, and I got to this last year, I got to watch him turn through it very slowly. And it's just, it's wonderful to, the critic's voice is gone. That little boy who
Mm,
was trying to crush me into a certain shape. And now there's just sort of, there's like a light in his eyes as he's looking at the drawings. And we've always loved to draw and he has sort of left that world behind a little bit, and I am nothing if not that, because that's all I care about. And so
yeah.
just to see him flip the pages and see him smile and flip the pages, it just it's doing something to my childhood self, sending information back and maybe healing that little boy, but it's a wonderful gift to see that.
Yeah, and for anybody, again, who's not familiar with your work, this particular book too has a number of drawings in it. So it's
Hmm.
not just your writings. You actually incorporate your very unique art sketches.
Yes, and I just drawing has always been there as sort of a savior from boredom,
Mm,
and then also as I, and this is sounds sad, but just evidence that I matter. I
mm,
I find that I know when I first um, started teaching at this school, I would draw and put little drawings on the wall in my office, and it was a funny sort of office because it was a former bathroom, so it was the tiniest office you've ever seen. And I started drawing and just sticking the pictures on the wall, not really paying attention until the walls were covered. And thinking about that, it feels small, and a little desperate. But maybe I felt small and a little desperate and needed somebody to walk into that office and see monsters all over the walls and just have that thought that there is something here to this person.
mm.
I've always I guess whatever, profound introversion has always made me wish that there was a card that I could wear that people could lean in, look at the card, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're a person of substance," and I wouldn't have to navigate just the mountain moving of trying to express who I really am when I'm afraid. And I think drawing has been, drawing and writing, they've been that for me, that I maybe I'm a little bit too afraid to interact with you honestly, but I've got a story and I've got a drawing, and maybe those will build the bridge for me.
Yeah, it sounds like creativity in general is just a way in which you express yourself because you blog and
Hmm.
you obviously you blog, you draw, you have a podcast of your
Hmm.
own, which is great stories, just easy listening, by the way. I
Oh,
recommend it
thank
for
you.
anybody. Um, and then now memoir. So this is kind of a new piece for you. So how different was writing memoir versus blogging or podcasting or really even expressing yourself through pictures and art?
Hmm. I think that because it's the truth,
Mm,
there's play there, but there's also, what do I do? How do I make this story into something that's enjoyable to read? Funny. I want it to be funny, and and sometimes the pieces aren't obviously there in the beginning. It'll be more like an anecdote than a story. Like this is just
hmm.
something that happened, but I can't see the arc and I don't see the point, and
Yeah,
so I'll have to sit with it until I see it, or change. Or maybe I had an ending and I'm like, that wasn't the ending. The ending is way back here. The story's over, friend. You need to cut off all this extra material.
yeah,
So with fiction, you just go wherever you want to go. But you take fiction principles and apply them to true stories, and it's sometimes you're trying to, I don't know, stretch a skin over a drum that might be too big for that particular piece. And so you have to make adjustments. So it is, sometimes you're stuck with a story and you're just, this isn't ready. I can't find the story in this. So it remains just that glowing image. And I guess I have
yeah.
to come back to it in time.
Yeah. So did you find that while you were pulling together all of your stories for this particular work, that you have several stories just sitting out there that maybe played a role, an integral
Mhm.
role in the stories that went into your book, but may never even make it into a published work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so for sure. Just little guys on the sidelines, and some where I still don't know why I did such and such. I'm like, I don't get it. I'm still, um, I I still can't figure it out.
Mm.
I know this is a story my dad tells where when he was a little guy, somebody was sitting on the tailgate of a truck and just swinging their legs, and he walked up and grabbed their feet and pulled them off, and so they fell what, 2.5, 3 feet onto their butt on the ground, and I think while they were falling, he was thinking, "Whoa, what have I done? Why did I do that?" And he couldn't figure it out, and so just little instances of madness in youth. Some of those stories, I'm like, okay, I'll figure you out someday, but you just rest for a minute. Because
Uh-huh.
if I tell this particular story, yeah, I think that kid's insane too, and I don't know what we're gonna get from this.
You were a pretty mischievous kid too. That came through in your book loud and clear. Sometimes I think though, especially when it comes to boys, like they just want to see what will happen and they don't really think through the consequences. It may not even be any deep psychological reason for why they do what they do, as much as your dad just kind of wanted to know what would happen if he yanked on that person's
Yes,
feet.
immediate regret.
That's too funny. Did you pick a piece to read for us? I would love to hear you read.
I did. This is the first story of the book. It's a story about my family, kind of how we came to be. And the story is called That Tickle in Your Throat Might Be a Nation. When my great-grandfather, William Williams, was a boy named at a time when words were few and worth repeating, he stood with his mother on the Southampton docks. They had third-class tickets to get from England to America by ship. This was April 1912. Guess which ship? As they waited, William Williams' mother had one rule: do not cough. I'll explain in a second. But first, consider William's mother. Imagine a severe woman born in a black dress. She's tall, bonneted, and pissed. In other words, she's Whistler's mother from that painting, Whistler's Mother, but standing. Go look at the painting. If that woman stood up, you would run. Yes, you would. Picture a 7-foot mother in a strangling mood, a mother ducking through your bedroom doorway, her long fingers dragging on the hardwood. That's who was leaning down to say to William Williams, do not cough. Why not? Here's why. In those old times, everyone was on the lookout for a certain kind of cough, the pertussis cough. It's the kind that makes you whoop, so they called it whooping cough. It was a real killer, still is, and if you had it, you got banned from coffee houses, posses, opium dens, public executions, and you certainly didn't get to die on the Titanic, no matter how third class you were. And though William Williams didn't have whooping cough, he did have a cough that day which sounded a lot like a whoop. He tried his hardest to obey Mother, who suggested, don't breathe. He didn't, until he did, and he did it while they were halfway up the boarding ramp. He breathed and coughed. Instantly, the boarding agent at the bottom of the ramp shouted something in British. Oi! Mother hissed at William Williams, keep going! Another official, this one guarding the top of the ramp, also shouted, Oi! Which roughly translates to, you've got a whooping boy! No Titanic for you! And so it was. My relatives, the sick and the furious, had to find another way across. For that, I am forever and ever grateful. Thank you, coughing boy. The particles and droplets of your cough are us, the crop of so many names blooming on the Williams family tree. You whooped and we flew, we grew. You whooped, therefore I am. Yes, I'm thankful, but I'm also scared. It's scary to know I only exist because of one little innocent cough that slipped from my great-grandfather's mouth. That's me. That's my people. The central figure on our coat of arms should be a coughing boy hunching in the shadow of a 9-foot mother whose anger didn't begin to melt until around 2:20 a.m. on the 15th of April, 1912. Though it scares me, I'm glad my existence hangs on a cough. It makes me remember how easy it is not to be here at all. Very easy. It also makes me wonder how many other lucky whoops are in my bloodline back to the beginning. I feel so accidental, so eerily random. I feel like a miracle. I guess that's not so bad. The end.
Wow, what a great piece to pick and so well read.
Oh,
Have you
thank
ever
you.
considered doing narration, narrating books?
Oh, I haven't, but I'd love to.
Oh, I think you would be so good at it. You have the perfect voice and cadence and
Wow,
yeah, I think
thank you very
you
much.
should look into it. That was very well read. Thank you so much for that.
Of
What a
course.
treat. So, how much of as you were reflecting back on these stories as a child, I guess my question comes in two parts. How do you bring out all of the details? Because you didn't you were little most of this
Hmm.
time, very young. So I imagine you probably didn't keep a journal or anything like that. Most of this was probably done by memory.
Yeah.
So how did you put yourself into a place to recall the detail that goes
Hmm.
into your lessons within the book? And how do you think your younger self informed the storyteller that you have clearly become?
Mm. I I think a lot of the stories and this, yeah, a lot of them we've been telling in my family for a long time.
Mm,
And so these are deep wells. And so that I'm very thankful for that I can dip into those places that we've been talking about for so long. And so all the information is there and I can just sort of ladle it up onto the page. Um, and then for some of the other ones, I I love Manette Ansay, and she wrote Vinegar Hill and Limbo. And I think Limbo's the memoir, and I think Vinegar Hill's a fiction. But she talked about writing to remember,
mhm,
and so how you'll have something this memory that you've got one way of remembering it, and that's just through thinking. But when you apply writing to the memory, you can dig deeper and deeper, and things will rise up, things you didn't remember that you remembered. And so I think there's the initial thought about the thing that happened, and then once you start digging into it with writing, more and more emerges.
mhm.
Um, and that's how some of the details show up. And as far as I just think also about that little boy. I think that I still operate the same way in that I've got this defect of profound hope in life, and that's made for just extremes, extremes of dreaming and extremes of disappointment. And
Mm,
so that's made for like a little memory mark on the brain. Well, it was a deep gouge because of how far I fell to make that mark.
mhm,
And so that's another that's just a great thing to have if you're trying to remember something, just a very painful memory or a very bright and just, I don't know, almost epiphany level hoping for something to happen, something good that would happen.
yeah.
It just makes that deep divot where the details just linger.
Yeah. Do you have a tense preference that you at least begin your writing in? Or does it just kind of come out, whether you're writing in past tense or as though you're in present tense?
I think usually it's past tense, and occasionally it might switch to present just for the fun of it. Just people do that naturally. I love when
Mhm.
that happens, and they're suddenly the story just it's a more immediate. They're you're
Yeah.
face to face, and they're telling it in the present tense. But I think naturally it's past, and that might come from just the early obsession with writing fiction. Most of what I
Hmm.
read was past tense,
Exactly.
so I think that might be where that's from.
It's something that I naturally tend to fall to present tense, especially when I'm writing about stories that are really, really old, like a long
Mm,
time ago in my life, because I think it helps pull me into the sensory detail of it that just allows me to get that out on the page. And then I find out later, just for, I don't know, structure sake or style sake or whatever, that I have to go and change it to past
mm.
tense. But oftentimes writing it in present tense, it kind of helps me pull out all of those sensory details that I think I would otherwise not really dig into. It's just kind
Wow.
of wild how our brains work, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So
Oh.
that's your first shovel for digging in is present tense.
Yeah,
Mm,
and I've tried to write in past tense, and
mhm,
that's exactly what happens is I will end up just switching mid
mm.
writing into present tense, and I'll have to go back to go back and edit everything. So I
Uh,
just started writing in present tense, especially when it's a really old memory, because it
mm,
just allows me to get as much detail as I can, and then I'll just
yeah.
switch it later if that's what I want to do.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just crazy how our brains work. I talk to so many memoirs who always start in present tense or in past tense.
Mm,
And I think, man, how do you do that? Like I almost have to walk through it in my mind like I'm living it right now in order to get the smells and the colors and the voices and the
mm.
words and you know what I mean?
Wow. Okay.
Crazy.
I'm gonna try it now.
Yeah, give it a shot. Try it. I mean, I don't know. To each their own. Some people do better writing it as though it's a memory, and that's
Mm,
fine too. I just think it just kind of depends on how our minds work.
mm.
So, given that this was your first memoir, and I think you may have just kind of hit on something, what did you learn about yourself writing it?
I learned that I'm not always right about the memory. And
Mm.
I'll have something that happened and I'll assume that I know what that meant and I'll know why it happened. And then I spend time with it and then I might make a discovery. And one of the big discoveries I made, it was so Joe had a wonderful way of tormenting me. He found a nickname that was just perfect, and it was Fat Boy. And that emerged from I went to a sleepover. They had a sleepover at the school when I was in fourth grade. And for some reason, it was all the boys and girls were there together. And for some reason, the guys were feeling tough. And so they took off their shirts and they were just parading around like little jungle men with our shirts off and feeling powerful. And somebody saw me and had a comment, and they told me on Monday, they're like, and it was the most popular girl in class. She said, "You're fat. And it destroyed me. I mean, it absolutely blew up my world. And from then on, I mean, I started lifting weights and running as a 10-year-old boy and not eating. And I lived to eat. And I would be saying no to candy, saying no. And just people like, what's wrong with Dan? And that something had started in me. And at that time, my brother was hunting for a way to use this new information. And he
Mm.
found the name that he could use that would make me just erupt with rage. And so I always thought like my brother is, it came from that girl who said that mean thing. It came from my brother and the nickname. And then I thought about it more and I was ready to explode. And why was that true? Why did that particular insult hurt so much? And I thought, oh my goodness, somebody has been working that ground way before that moment in fourth grade, way before the nickname that my brother invented. And I thought, where did that come from? And so that made me just seek deeper into the past and then just, sort of things that I bump into now as I visit home and, noticing that your family and your extended family, they're very focused on bodies. That's interesting. And
Mm.
why are they so focused on bodies? And that information was pouring into me, and I had no idea until I got that particular insult, and then whatever, the connection was made and everything changed. So I had no idea that that was what was going on there.
Wow. And you had just blamed him for using it for all of these years, and it was
Yeah,
something that just went so much deeper. I guess that makes sense. Like things don't usually cut that deep unless you already feel like there's at least a modicum of truth to it, right? Unless you're
right.
already insecure about it.
Yes, yes. I think if I hadn't been prepped to be hurt, I would have just thought, huh, I never thought of myself that way before.
Mm.
Interesting. It might have stung a little bit, but I had been taught that that is the worst thing you can be. and then it boom, and then it happened. So that I wouldn't have known that if I didn't sit down and try to dig into the memory. And
Yeah,
and it was a shock to find it.
I can imagine. These things can be a bit traumatic. I mean, I think it's what memoir is about, right? And it also helps us to integrate feelings and to heal feelings, but it can be a bit traumatic to reintroduce them and have to dig deeper like you did. People are like onions, like Shrek says,
Hmm.
or to just even revisit it if you don't have to dig deeper. But you're a comedian. You're a humor writer. So how did you strike that balance within this memoir and those deeper memories that perhaps required a little bit more healing?
Hmm. I think because it is strange with nonfiction, humor just seems to erupt out of it just naturally. And with fiction, it doesn't. And so I've been trying for a while now. I want humor to move toward fiction. I want it to be
Mm.
there. But when I write fiction, it's always just grotesque and dark. And the wedding of those two things, I think, would be just magnificent if I could bring together the grotesque and horror with humor in sort of a Coen Brothers kind of way. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that's kind of the summit I'm climbing toward. I want that. But with since the voice is just naturally wants to be funny when I'm telling true stories, that it's almost that just takes care of itself. The humor is going to be there no matter how dark the story is. And so, and I think also there's enough distance now that I can see I can see where the funny is waiting. And and maybe it's more difficult when it's recent, but funny is there, it wants to be there, and then I'm just working with that just cloud hanging over my head, which is a happy cloud of trying to communicate something true. And they just end up weaving together kind of naturally. But it's yeah, I can't crack that puzzle yet. My fiction isn't funny yet. So
That's
try to
so
get there.
interesting. It's almost like you have two personalities at work.
It feels that way. And
Yeah.
because I look at it and I think this should be really easy. Just do, and I've even tried to trick my mind and I'll use first person and I'll try to pretend that I'm using that voice that's for the nonfiction in fiction. And then it just slowly bends into grotesque and super dark and not funny at all with the fiction. So
Wow.
I haven't yet been able to control it.
That's so interesting. I'm gonna have to do you have any published fictional works or just your memoir?
Um, I some that are older, way older. So now the big dream is to push through that the initial dream door, which is to have fiction published.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I'm hoping that within the next couple of years I'll be able to break through.
No, I'll have to keep an eye on it and see where you go with that. That's a sounds like it's a pretty good challenge for you. Push yourself to the limit.
It is. Yep. Yeah.
Good.
I hope to find it.
You will. You will. Keep plugging away. You just got to find the sweet spot. So you are a tenured professor at Geneva College, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
right. Yep.
as I understand it, that community had a pretty big hand in helping you bring this book to fruition. Tell us a little bit
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah, I had advice from a mentor in grad school that when you get to your new appointment, and this was a 1 year placement at this school. So 1 year you do your work and then you're gone and they're still looking for somebody else. And so my mentor's advice was make a splash. You have to make something that makes you recognizable quickly within that year
Mm.
so that they want to keep you. And so there was this, I was like, okay, let's have a storytelling event and it's called the Geneva Reading Series.
Mhm.
And the idea was from grad school. They had a was a Thursday night reading series, and so I thought we need a Geneva reading series, and I'll open it up, and we'll have students, staff, and faculty, sometimes administration share poetry, sometimes photography, music, stories, And one night, and he started out twice a semester. Now it's once a semester because it was breaking me in half to try to organize these events. And the very first one, I wrote a nonfiction piece about a sort of war I had with another guy on campus. His name was also Dan Williams. So I would get his emails and he would get my emails. And so the whole point of my essay was I want to set the story straight and that I am the Dan Williams. I am the one that matters and counts. And it just ended up working and being funny and the event has just continued from then. And so I always intro the thing with some story from life um, and and I've loved writing for that and making people laugh so much that a lot of the stories in the book might come from that event or from a story I told in class and it worked and I was like, wait a second. But maybe it'll work even better on the page, and I'll just sort of tweak it and work some of these stories. So I'm kind of hoping that the students, especially the final story about us making homemade bombs and repurposing roadkill. I told that in class several times, and I love the idea of a student, they only heard it live and then reading it in the book and like, I know this story and getting to have it in that way and getting to sort of like keep it. They have it in the book. So thanks to my students, I had a student actually help me start blogging on WordPress and then it moved to Medium. And so it's kind of in that hive, the mind hive of Geneva, this type of writing emerged, and I have an audience there, encouragement there. Um, these technical wizards who helped me figure out how to navigate creating a blog online, and so it's really been the base camp for all of this.
Wow, what a cool opportunity to be able to kind of tap into your resources around you, even to your students. Is that kind of what drove the stories that made it into this published memoir versus the ones that, I'm sure there were plenty that you decided probably not to even include.
I think I did have my students in mind for many of them.
Mm,
But I think once it emerged into sort of book territory, then it was about me and Joe. And just kind of it rose up and left behind sort of requirements of because there are certain stories that I would have told it a little bit differently in front of an audience, but when I'm trying to go for something deeper, um,
hmm.
then they change a little bit, and I'm like, all right, the heart of this thing is me and Joe. Let's find out. Let's go on that journey. But the genesis is all there in sort of Geneva interactions.
That's so cool. Has Joe read it yet?
He has, and everyone was afraid, and he kept asking me, they're like, has your brother read it yet? And especially my mother, just, has Joe said anything? And he didn't for a long time. And I was like, oh, shoot, like I must have really hurt him. And I hope he doesn't misunderstand that I don't think that I'm a victim in this book. I'm like, I contribute to my own destruction plenty of times. And that there's no hard feelings. If anything, I'm just sort of grateful and I almost wish it was worse because then there would have been more stories. But I did get a message from him saying that he was enjoying it and that he had even read some of the stories to his kids out loud, which made me very happy. Um, but he does have regrets that he wishes that it could have been different. And I told him, don't feel that at all. Like this is what children do in the fires of becoming grown-ups. Like they just I don't know. They hit each other with Thor hammers and it hurts and that's how we grow. And so I told him
Hmm.
like don't feel bad for a second. Um that didn't change that we're friends, that I love him at all.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, plus I also kind of take the Elizabeth Gilbert approach of we all have a role to serve for each other in this life. And sometimes in the moment, that can feel painful, but at the end of the day, it's exactly what makes us who we are. And it
Mm,
it serves our growth no matter what it is. So
mm,
I always try to keep that in mind for those kinds of relationships too. Even
mm.
if it was difficult when it was young, had it been any different, you wouldn't be who you are. And
That's
it
right.
sounds to me like you're touching a lot of people with the work that you do, and certainly with the creativity that you put out into the world. So
Mm.
I'm grateful for the
Thank,
brother that you had.
thank you.
What surprised you most about publishing it?
I I think, and this comes back to the hope, my sort of like hope problem. Publishing a book feels so big and just earth-shattering big. Like the whole world is gonna know. And then when it happens, and a few people know, and your family and friends, they know, and it's not this tsunami of
Right. The world's still
recognition.
spinning. Yep.
Oh, totally. Like without breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
And then you just start to think like, oh my goodness. And you just have to recalibrate a lot
Hmm.
because you're at first, and people will tease you and they'll say, just the thing, I hate it, just sort of like, um, remember us, when you're famous, and all these things that just, you're like, I'm not, I'm not famous. This tease kind of hurts because there was a little child heart in me that wanted this to be the thing and that just, launched you into glory.
Yeah.
And so you just have to navigate all of that and kind of come back to remembering, like, why am I doing this? Because I think the payoff couldn't possibly be as big as I imagined. There's just no way. And so I just sort of slowly walk back down from, you know, Disappointment Mountain, a mountain I built out of weird expectations, back down to I love writing. I
Hmm.
love sharing writing with people.
Yeah.
And it's as close as I'm ever going to be to being a chef and getting to hand off some dish to somebody and hear them say yum. That's my version of that.
Yes.
And so I will work toward another book and another one forever,
Mm.
just because no matter how cosmic the disappointment might be from, because of these expectations, I love doing this. And so that's just going to be the little motor that's going to keep pushing it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like storytelling is kind of in your lineage, right?
Mm. Very
Yeah.
much with my father and grandfather, especially. And there are people in my family. If there's a big gathering, my dad and grandpa, they rule. They're so good at telling stories, and and then there will be a few people who aren't, and you can feel it in the room when they're not, and
Hmm.
you're just sort of aching for it to get back to the pros. And if it's a big gathering, sometimes you'll have four or five pros, and it's just I don't want to speak at those events because I still feel like a little child in the
Yeah.
shadow of these giants. And I sometimes have to, get them activated because like my dad and grandpa will just want to talk about water heaters the whole time. And I'm like, guys, please, you know, tell about the time that grandpa you caught an insane dog out of the air right before it bit my father's face. Like tell me that about the time my dad drove a school bus through Waterville, Maine with no brakes. I'm like, let's go. And so I just
Like
and
real
if
life speed. That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yes. He lived it. And if I can get that going and then they start pinging off each other and telling stories and the cycle is happening, then I guess that just feels like heaven. You forget about
Mm.
everything else and you're just like in that flow of story. So I'm always thinking about them. And when I'm around them and if I'm like in the spotlight and I have to tell a story, I'm just sort of like feeling this tremendous pressure. I'm like, Dad wouldn't have paused that long here. Like Grandpa would have had a way better analogy, and so I feel that.
Wow, I just had these flashes in my mind of, have you ever considered recording those sessions of your dad and your grandfather telling stories? And the reason why I ask is because there's this relatively new children's toy that has hit the market that I am just madly in love with. It's called the Tony Box.
Okay.
And it's just this little box, and you buy characters, and the characters will tell a story just through this little box. There's no screen, nothing. It's just stories. But you can buy characters and record voices on them to tell the story. And I'm just thinking with your illustrations and with recordings of your dad and your grandpa telling stories, what an incredible thing for your family to have as legacy. Just a thought, it just like came into
Oh,
my mind.
I
So I thought
love
I'd
that
just put it
thought.
out there for you.
Thank you for that. It's called a Tony box.
Yeah, it's called the Tony box. I mean, you don't have to use the Tony box, but just kind of what I was thinking of. If my kids could have my grandfather telling stories or my
Oh,
dad telling stories, my grandkids could have something like that. How great. What a
oh,
great thing to gift to the kids coming into your family.
oh, that would be amazing. I
Just a silly
and
little thought.
with that, I wanted Grandpa. I once was talking to him, and I was like, Grandpa, you have to write a book. Would you please? Your life is so storied. Wouldn't that be great if you would? And I'll help you. And so he's like, let's have a meeting. And I was really excited because I thought he's gonna just it's gonna be this overflow. And I call him the Tom Sawyer of Maine because he's just this wild life force. And so when I had that meeting with Grandpa, I showed up and he had like uh an index card with bullet points on it, like one side even of a couple of stories. And I thought like this is what you imagine when you think of like your life in a book. And I couldn't believe I was like devastated. So I wanted us to record, hours and hours of information. And he's like, and so I just thought, I guess you are untranslatable. You are just gonna be you as you are. And you're not gonna hit the page, are you, Grandpa?
That's okay. That's okay. I think men of a certain generation too are just much more humble. He probably doesn't really
Mm,
view the stories the same way that you view them.
mm,
But man, there's so much cool technology out there for enhancing voice and
yeah.
reducing background noise. And I mean, you can pretty much do anything with a recording. So
Mm.
just a thought.
Oh, thank you.
What has your feedback been like from readers so far?
It's been so I have a couple of stories that I really like. My cousin's son. I don't know what that would be to me. Who is he to me? Something removed. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's a second cousin once removed. I don't.
okay.
The
So
removeds get me confused. Something like
yeah.
that.
Okay. So he's one of those and he got a hold of the book. He's 10 and he like smuggled it up into his room and read it like in one fell swoop, read the whole thing. And then the next weekend read it again and he said he gave the book a rating. He said I would rate it 10 and up for language and crude joking. And so he wants to protect all the little children from it, but he wants himself included in the readership. And I just love
So
that
cute.
so much. And that, that, I love it so much because I think that when I was his age, I didn't want to read books at all. I wanted to be outside in the woods and just playing. And one summer, mom paid my brother and I cash money to read books. And so we only read for the money. And then she would take us to Toys R Us and we'd cash in. So just the idea of a little boy finding a book that, I don't know, maybe it was the cover illustration or that we're family made him want to
Hmm.
read it and then read fast to the end. I thought, oh my goodness, because in the past when querying agents for books that they all said no to. But I bumped into this thing. Agents were like, we want to find books that make boys want to read. And I thought, I lived that. I experienced that with my little second removed guy. He wanted to
Oh,
read this book. And so that made me dream in that direction to the point where I was thinking maybe I need to re-release this with like just kids, for kids edition of
yeah.
this book, remove the F word chapter and so that kids can read it. And then just the other day, a guy walked up to me, a friend of mine, and he just said, "You are demented." And he's like, "I've been reading your book." And it was just, that made me so happy.
Those are fantastic compliments. It probably would be really good. I mean, I think there are some mischievous stories in there that some parents may not appreciate their,
Yeah, I agree
appreciate
with
their
you.
boys reading. So maybe it would be a good idea to actually create a PG-10
Yeah.
version of it. But I think children benefit from that too, especially, man, especially boys. I mean,
hmm
girls too, and for different reasons, but um in a world where we're just kind of where children are just kind of expected to just sit and listen and
Hmm.
fit in, and you boys want to blow stuff up. I mean, they want
Hmm.
to get dirty and they want to break stuff and they want to fist fight. It's just kind of part of their, part of our nature as human beings, those things.
Hmm.
And it's probably good for them to see that it's not abnormal to have those feelings too,
Hmm.
right?
I love
Especially if
that.
they're lucky enough to get outside and have the opportunity to get themselves into some trouble. So many kids don't
Oh,
these days.
oh, hey man. Yeah. Get
Yeah.
out. Get
Yeah,
out there,
get
kids.
outside, go break something,
Oh, hey
scrape up a
man.
knee and rub some dirt on it, right? What do you hope that readers take away from reading your book?
I hope they take away that you can find the funny in just about anything, that
Mhm.
it's there waiting, and that what I people who I want people to want to tell stories. And I've experienced that where actually a guy at Geneva, he read the book and then he wrote me a long email where he wrote down 30 of his lessons that he had learned from his life and things that he had done, wild, adventurous, terrible things as a child. And I just thought, like, that's it right there. That's what I want to have happen, to sort of have it, whatever, pay itself forward through people just telling their stories more and thinking about, oh yeah, I haven't thought about that thing that I said in third grade that that sort of got me sent home. I haven't thought of that in a long time. And the face of my teacher. And I want that impulse to sort of whatever echo into the readers and have them just if I could have access somehow, God level vision to see somebody shut the book and just stare for a second as they're remembering something that happened to them. Like there it is. That's what I
Mm.
want.
That's the magic of memoir. I agree with you. That's what I love about it so much. And we were kind of talking a little bit off recording about the importance of
Mm,
personal stories and about how no matter how different someone is from you, if given an entire book of memoir of a story of theirs, you're going to find something reflected back to you. You're going to
hmm.
find something that you relate to, and that's because human beings are all connected in some mysterious way. We're all
Hmm.
we're all connected. We all come from the same place and we all have for the most part all the same, wants, wishes, wants, desires and
Hmm.
fears.
Hmm.
And I think the more that we can share that and normalize just being human in a digital, an increasingly more digital world, the better off we'll be.
Hmm.
I have this saying that AI can't write memoir,
Hmm.
but I discovered it can.
Oh no.
It can. AI can write memoir. It has a little bit of a different flair and not quite as much of an emotional impact as human memoirs do, which is where the magic is, right? And
Hmm.
like we were talking about earlier, you know that you have put out a good story when someone wants to share their relatable moment back.
Hmm.
So congratulations for that. And
Oh,
congratulations on publishing your first. Good for you.
thank you very much.
I
Thank you.
anticipate there will be more. So, where's the best place for people to get a copy?
They can find it at my publisher's website. It's fallscitypress.com/misbehaving.
Okay.
Also Amazon. It's out there on Amazon. And then my website too has a link to it. And my website is danwilliamswrites.com.
Okay,
And there are
perfect. I'll
also
put all that in
drawings
the
on the
show notes.
website.
Yes, I love your drawings, by the way. I'll put all
Oh,
that in the show notes as well to make it easy for people.
awesome.
What's next for you? What are you working on now besides your fiction?
So I have a friend. I just met this friend on Medium, and we've been talking back and forth. And I told her about a book project that I had tried to query and it didn't go anywhere, and so I was letting it sit. And it's a story called The Elephant and the Angel. And my son is the main character of the book. And my friend online said, "Can I read it?" And so I sent it to her. And then this is where just hoping and dreaming is going to be out of control. She told me, she said, like, please don't be excited. And I'm like, I promise I won't be excited. But she said she has a friend in Hollywood who is interested in turning projects into movies and things like that, and that she would send him the project. She sent it to him, and he said he would take a look after Sundance. And so like I'm just like trying to not lose my mind.
How do you not get excited about something like that?
Right, I can't control it. And so like the dreaming has already begun. But so that's where I'm at right now, just waiting to hear back. Like maybe something cool will happen there.
So now we all have to follow you to see what happens, see if something comes up.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching. That's really cool. How exciting for you.
uh, fingers crossed.
Well, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much. And thanks for sharing your gift of creativity with the world. We need more Dan Williams in the world.
Thank you so
It's
much, and thank
important.
you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll be in touch again in the future. I don't think this is going to be your last memoir. We'll circle back around.
Oh, sounds good. Count me in.
All right. In the meantime, take care.
Bye.
Bye. That's it for today's episode of For Love of Memoir. Thanks for listening. If something in this conversation moved you, I'd be so grateful if you'd follow the show, leave a comment, or share it with someone you care about. Those small actions tell the algorithm that our content matters so we can reach more memoir lovers like you.